What up? So, this is our spiritual gumbo review for the book of Leviticus. It's not going to take really, really long, but there's some things that I haven't been able to speak about or really tie together that I want to bring together with this review and give the understanding that I have in my mind that not just a day in the life would have been like, but some of the things that Moses would have encountered that we have to assume would have happened. I give you a prime example. Uh, how you discern the law, for example, right? So you're not supposed to have children with a woman, let's say, right? If you have let's say you have more than one wife, right? Unless you say you have two, just to make it simple. And let's say the wife that you married second, you hate more than your first wife. For hate, I don't know why that's the word, but that's the word in the Bible. So we're gonna go with the word hate, and you can't stand her. And so neither one of them have a child yet. So you figure I'm going to have children with my first wife because I want those children to be blessed first. But that's actually backwards as to how you're supposed to treat it. They're like you're supposed to get the woman who you hate, you're supposed to have a child with her first. So then that way you don't try to leave those children out of the inheritance. You see what I'm saying? So it's all pertinent information. But when we look at things like that, and then we look at the book of the Leviticus, people are like wondering, like, well, why that, Meech? We must understand that these people are in the middle of the wilderness, nothing going on. So between building the tabernacle of witness, their first year and a half in the wilderness, um, in the book of the Numbers, which we'll get to in the next day or so, when we start to actually open up that book and break it down, we're gonna see. Well, we're gonna understand that the people don't stop procreating; they don't stop copulating just because they're in the wilderness. I know it's hard to imagine that there was literally a country's worth of people in what we would call the middle of nowhere, but the wilderness, right? And this group of people learned everything that they know, all their etiquette in this place. Why that's so important is because historians sometimes will read the scripture, and let me just see if I can't pull it up because I didn't actually try to go find it, where it talks about the tabernacle of witness being covered by the pillar of cloud by day, and then it being covered with the flame by night. And why this is such a crucial thing is because we must understand the ancestors were not stupid people. Okay, the 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 same intelligence it takes to take to inform a person of the exact dimensions to how the tabernacle of witness was built, things gilded with gold, things gilded with silver, things gilded with brass, things not gilded, uh i.e. precious stones for the not gilded things. But the point is this: they're not stupid, so they're not making this stuff up. So I would I would say it was safe to presume that people would ask Moses, or what they would want to know, how is that possible? And I'm not saying that Moses would give them some kind of Einstein scientific answer, but I do think Moses could give them some sort of edification, so that way they had some type of understanding. And for things that were already kind of more known about, Moses could just point out with everyday life. Like, prime example, the best one, this is what I've been wanting to tell everybody. Imagine the number one question Moses got. And everybody's like, what is it, Meech? Is what is a Gentile? Right. And see, and the reason why this is so important is because they don't have to ask about Pangea or this or when Earth was all one piece. They don't have to ask about that. They believe that they can get that. right? They can fathom that. They can even fathom the humanoids that came out of the middle of the planet. They just can't fathom that they're Gentiles. Some of them don't understand the difference. Okay? So Moses has to pull guys to the side and say, hey, look, see that guy over there? He's like, yeah. He's like, what tribe is he a part of? He's like, he's not part of anybody's tribe. He's like, he came out of Egypt with this. He's like, but what does he look like? He's like, well, he's tall. He's like, what else about him is different? Well, he doesn't grow a beard. He's like, what else? He's like, well, I mean, none of us are exactly that dark skinned. He's like, okay. He's like, where do you think that kind of guy came from? See, Moses had to educate the people about the fallen with the actual life forms that were around him. You see what I'm saying? So if there were white skinned looking people back then, Moses could easily point out and say, hey, look, you see that guy over there? That guy's more than likely a Gentile. Right on? He don't grow no afro or whatever we call this now. They grew similar hair, whatever they would call their hair or just hair. He doesn't grow hair like us. You see what I'm saying? And not to be vulgar or derogative, but their hair resembles more that of a wild animal than it does of a man. So these are just small things. And it doesn't have to be a white person with hair like that. We all know black people with so-called quote unquote good hair. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful or vulgar. I'm just trying to give gravitas to the situation, because when they're in the wilderness, there are distinctions that are being made so that way the people know exactly who and what they're looking at. And I believe that this is the only reason why they were able to last so long, outside of the fact that the Most High God didn't just let them get killed off. Is I'm contending that before the people lost their minds altogether and totally went completely sideways with the Most High God, I contend that they knew what a Gentile was and had a pretty good understanding that a Gentile could look more like you than not like you, as opposed to a Gentile who's easily distinguishable from your people, who just doesn't look anything. I don't think of, let me say it like this. I don't believe that a person who is totally super duper dark and lacks certain features that I have looks just like me. I don't believe that. You know what I mean? I don't prescribe to the one big nig doctrine, even if that's what they force onto us. And I do believe that a part of Moses's most important critical training would have been to show the people how distinguished they were from all the other groups on earth, and to make it clear to them that they were different. So that way they didn't try to go and do stupid stuff. Or when things happened to them, they could understand, like, okay, that's right. These guys are Gentiles. Right on. So the same rules that apply to me don't apply to them. Like if we go to chapter, I want to say 24, right? In the Leviticus. And there's a scene where there's a woman. Okay, listen. He was the son of an Egyptian man and an Israelitish woman. The dude is Egyptian. Okay? Right on? The scripture takes the blow off of taking a big dookie on the Egyptians, okay, for being a certain type of way. Right. It would be one of the people of the land that they just came up out of. And this will tell you, and I need people to understand, when we get ready to get into the book of the Numbers, there's going to be a part where we read about the population per tribe. I cannot prove that some of the people that are counted are exactly just like baby girl who's Israelitish. I can't prove that. And I can't prove that their children are counted amongst some of these people. And why this is so important is because coming out of a place like Egypt, you already have an issue where the people blood mixed within the land of Egypt. You see what I'm saying? So it's not like, oh, they came out here and they were just 12 tribes pure all throughout and then got muddied up, as they got their inheritances, it's like, no, a lot of these guys are already muddied up, so to speak, before they left the land. And now that they're in the wilderness, it's being shown to us to what extent they've been watered down, or they have a different mentality. Remember, this man, he strives. Listen, it says, verse 19 of chapter 24. And there went forth the son of an Israelitish woman, and he was the son of an Egyptian man among the sons of Israel. Stop right there. It distinguishes that he's the son of an Egyptian man among the sons of Israel. Right on. Now, do I believe that this guy's a bearded dude? Yep. Because I believe that I can't perfectly contend this with everybody believing me, but there's more belief than not that the Egyptians, the true Egyptians, true sons of Ham, share the same genetic material as Shem and Japheth. And having said that, his children, to a degree, to this day, certain branches of them look just like what you would call a Negro person. This does matter. This matters a lot. Okay, because once again, what good does it do the Most High God to give an ordinance about not shaving your beard if, let's say, half the people don't grow beards? Right, that's a pointless ordinance. Or it's only talking to the people who grow beards. That means that the people who don't, it's not talking to them. But that doesn't make sense, because all the other rules that go with that, it's a presumptuous notion. Okay, it's presumptuous. It's in the nature of believing that whoever is supposed to be reading this, it pertains to them. So once again, this Egyptian guy, who to me, in my mind, is getting hairs beat out of his head, patches of hair knocked out of his head, and knocked out of his beard, he curses the name of the Most High God. Boom. They bring him to Moses. They tell him what he done. Moses is like, beat this dude till his blood is on his head, and then stone him. Now, I know people are like, why would you skip through so much just to talk about this? It's because I don't want to take you through sacrifice. I don't want to have to tell you that when you cook all your food, right, it's based on biblical standards, it's supposed to have salt on it. Okay? Right on? Based on those righteous standards and tenets, it's supposed to have salt. So it's not always like it's not like I'm telling you, oh, if you have diabetes and your doctor's like, you shouldn't eat salt and stuff like that. I'm not telling you to go against, already poor health, or questionable health or compromised health. However you feel most comfortable with the term. My point being this. Most High God said to saute your vegetables when you cook them, when you eat them. Right, for sacrifice. Cook them with oil and to season them with salt. The salt of sacrifice. All your meat's supposed to be seasoned with salt. Right. The breads that you make, certain breads are supposed to have salt on them. Come on. Unless it's the sweet perfume bread. Come on. Or the cake, however you want to say it. So there's no need for me to get boggled down in that, because there's a lot of, that's what the Leviticus is sacrifice. I don't want to get boggled down in telling people that leprosy is anything from mold to a lesion, right? So that can be from mold in your home to a lesion on your skin that can be considered leprosy, right? There's no need to go through all that with people, because I need them to understand that when they read terms like Gentile, every time you see that word, and you haven't seen it a whole lot, so it's hard to understand that it truly does, it means something other than man, right? Because There's no land of Gentile in the Bible. I want you to think about this for a moment. Every race, every known race has a land that's associated with them, whether it's from the most base progenitor of the species. So, i.e., all the Canaanites, whether you call what? Okay, so the Amorites, the Evites, the Hivites, the Kittites, the Jebusites, the Girgasites, right? I want to say even the Ardukite, if I'm not mistaken. But once again, though, they're all Canaanites, right on? And the Canaanite itself. So, but they all live in the land of Canaan or Phoenicia. They're all Phoenicians, but they're different sects of the Phoenician people. You see what I'm saying? And so the term Gentile, there's no understanding in the scripture where there's a sub-Gentile group, if you will. And why I'm trying to express this so much to y'all is that we need to get in our minds that giants or giant-like people are Gentiles as well. And sometimes it's hard for us to put the two together. A Gentile is not always a giant, but a giant is always a Gentile. It's like the square to rectangle comparison. And we need to really understand that the Most High God, he's teaching people tenets and rules as to how you treat other people. There's a reason why he doesn't talk about how you treat Gentiles. There's a real reason why they don't come up at all. Right. See, a stranger could be a Gentile, but a stranger is more than likely a person who is an established of us from an established group or race, okay, and they're not native to the land, i.e., when Abraham goes into Egypt, he's a Hebrew, but he's still a stranger to the people. He's nothing more than a stranger when he goes there. And it's important and it's crucial that we recognize things like that and that we acknowledge things like that. The Leviticus was a wonderful book to read because it gives us the understanding of class and decency. And it's really the culmination of how the Most High God would ultimately wants the people to conduct themselves. You see? And there have been hundreds of commands up until now. See, you would have to have read every little thing. You know what I'm talking about? When the Most High God tells, informs, instructs, right? Abraham to circumcise himself. That is a commandment. That commandment is the most basic cornerstone to Israelite culture. You follow what I'm saying? And unlike Ishmaelite culture, because Ishmael was 14 when he was circumcised. This is why Muslims don't normally circumcise themselves until they're 14. Just in case y'all didn't know that. Because they claim to be true sons of Ishmael, even though we know that's not the case for 97% of those guys claiming that in the Middle East. Point being this: Israelites don't wait that long. Okay? They're not supposed to. You see what I mean? There are other people who are Hebrews whose circumcision doesn't even apply to. And they can't make me believe that it does. I.e., the Syrians, not the Assyrians, the Syrians. I can say that circumcision is found nowhere in that nation. Right on? It's not. It's not a thing that they would have practiced normally. The Moabites, the Ammonites, not something that they would have practiced normally. I could even contend that the Assyrians through Abraham would have been dicey and questionable. It's just a basic thing. That's the most basic law, right on? That's the most basic thing. And so I know folks have a hard time believing this. This is why I asked, when did Moses get certain information? Because let's say up until the point that he tells Moses that sleeping with animals is not okay, that people are doing that, are doing all these other things that he's telling Moses to tell the people to stop doing it and not do. The reason why there's supposed to be laws for separation and things like that, right? I'm just going to point something out today because I don't want to ever have to point it out again until we get done with this. There is a very stark belief that the fathers who prostituted out their daughters, who allowed their daughters to go a-whoring, caused more damage, unforeseeable and unknowable damage that is irreparable. And the point that I'm making is this. You had women who were the daughter of priests, the priests prostituting out their daughters to foreign kings and foreign princes, right? Allowing their daughters to get pregnant and come back and to eat bread from their tables, knowing that their daughter's polluted now. See what I'm saying? Right, things like that. But you did that on purpose. And you have this guy to give extra part of the sacrifice. You have him to give an extra part so that way he can eat the sacrifice. So that way he can take part with us. Wickedness. Okay? People didn't want to fall. Once again, I'm just giving y'all a basic rundown of what could have happened. Not what did happen, but for sure, this is feasible that this probably took place. And I know most people want to say that's not true. Meech, why would you want to believe that the rules that we're reading about from the latter part of the Genesis all the way through Exodus, all the way through, and you can say the mid part of the Genesis, really, all the way through the book of the Levites, which is known as Leviticus. And don't worry, there's many more. We're going to read many more statutes and injunctions in the book of Numbers. There's going to be specific laws for specific people. There's going to be specific type of sacrifices. There's a sacrifice for a man to perform when he's jealous or when he believes that his wife is doing something that she's not supposed to be doing, like talking behind his back or sleeping around. You see what I'm saying? There's sacrifices for that. There's things to be performed behind that, you see, and it's befitting, it's proper that it takes place in this avenue. Now, having said that, the book of the Levites makes one thing known to us that I really can't stress enough, is the Jubilee and the understanding of what Jubilee is, and the idea that what was once yours will always be yours. This is something that I also know that they really messed up with, was because you had young ladies who were she's the only child, so she gets all the inheritance pretty much, and she goes and marries a guy from a foreign nation, takes all her inheritance to that nation, and right, she robs her tribe of generational wealth. See, once again, for people to complain about these issues now and not realize that these were issues that existed thousands of years ago for Black people. And the reason why we're experiencing them now is because thousands of years ago, when we had a chance to do right, we didn't. I can't stress this enough. I cannot put that forth enough, and I won't leave this alone, before I do all that. And I'm almost done now with this review. This review was meant for me to just get these things off my chest. not so much for me to read the scripture. Uh, I mean, does anybody understand that there was the way that they were supposed to do it when they came into the land? So they're supposed to go in there, cut down all the trees, tear down all the groves, all the graven images, everything, right? Let the trees grow back. You're not supposed to have fruit from that for 5 years. See what I'm saying? So I didn't say I didn't say you couldn't eat the wheat that grew. I didn't say that you couldn't eat the herbs of the field, but the fruit that comes from the trees, the Most High God is like, you're going to give it 5 years to come into its properness. The the first 3 years, I believe you're supposed to let the produce fall to the ground and to allow it to fertilize itself, so to speak. Because I don't understand the the idea of you going out of your way to pull down all the fruit from these trees just to take it out the land to dump it somewhere else when that's actually not even an ordinance given. So I assume that it's meant to allow the land to gain back a lot of its health and to become healthy again, and for you to turn the land with it, so to speak. And these trees gain a certain amount of health in 5 years. Having said that, it 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 talks about the first jubilee that was supposed to be 50 years after they're in the land, right? And the reason why this is so important is because it's pretty much saying that, okay, so boom, your first 7 years, right? Because 7 times 7 is 49. See what I'm saying? So in the seventh cycle of the jubilee, of your first seven jubilees, there's going to be a cycle where it comes in the 50th year. You're going to pretty much where everything was at, everything is going to go back like that. You're going to reset. The idea of the jubilee is so that way when a person who's lost their, like for example, if you sell your land, right, and it's not your land for 5 years or 6 years or almost seven, in the seventh year, they're not supposed to touch the land. You're supposed to be able to reap all the benefits of that. Now, granted, I assume it's just like supply and demand any other time. It might be something that's a hot ticket item. It might be something that's not a hot ticket item that people don't need, and because they've got an abundance of it, they don't need what you have, or they want what you have at the same price that this other person has it at, and you need it for a greater price, so that way you can survive. It all just depends, and it's things like that. It's like, is that an unfair business practice because you didn't take care of your inheritance that this person has to not increase their riches? That's stupid. But at the same time, the Most High God is like, look, what is one man's, whether it be his property or something that belongs to him in general, right? That he can associate to being his, a form of his inheritance. It goes back to him in the year of the Jubilee, and I think that I know that all these tenets got escaped from. I know there was a time when they were following none of this. I know there was a time when they didn't believe in any of this. And that's what's most disheartening, is that because you have a group of people right now who call themselves African Americans who, for the life of them, will not connect and say, you know what, these people sound more like us than not. All right. Um, the reason why there's a need for the Jubilee is because you're having people who just came out of 430 years of hardcore oppression out of Egypt, who, for a want of better terms, they haven't been able to control their own finances properly. So, because most of them are poor, right? So you're either a highly touted and respected elders tribesman, or you were born in Egypt like Ephraim and Manasseh. You see what I'm saying? And that makes a big difference for them to be Egyptian. You know, their servitude. There's no way anyone's going to tell me that their servitude was as critical or as damaging as You see what I'm saying? As any of the other tribes. It's just, it's hard to believe that, you know. Even if the damn brand new Pharaoh didn't know who Joseph was, doesn't really matter, because guess what? You guys would have been born in a position where you would have been higher. Your social status would have been naturally higher than somebody who would have been born on the lower rungs. And that's just the way it is. And I do believe that there's a disconnect once again between these people and the people that are called African Americans now, and their inability to really say, you know what, we have to own this, because just think about it like this. You're a king, you have a daughter, you've always followed the laws. I mean, always followed the laws. You've never broken the laws. And you've taken it and you've made it a personal mission to make sure that during your reign, right, the women don't marry out to foreign nations. You know what I mean? Um, Things like that, things that you have no control over. You get what I'm talking about? In a normal happenstance. But you say, you know what? I'm going to pass an ordinance while I'm the king. I'm gonna make a decree, and for every woman and every man that doesn't go and marry somebody out of the nation, we give you some kind of what they would call like a tax rebate now, right? You know what I'm saying? Because people paid tribute, people paid taxes back then. Like, nothing's changed, you know. In order to get to live in the city that the Most High God has ordained for the people, you don't get to just stay up in that joint, you know. The most protected class. Let's talk about that for a second. The most protected class in the entire scripture were the Levitical priests, and they went against their post or their charge the hardest. They did the worst as far as what you actually look at as tangible sin, because I don't want to give away too much. They were the smallest in the numbers, off tops. And we could say that this is because they copulated the least. We could say that this is because, of course, I mean, but that's neither here nor there, though, family. I mean, like, you know, I mean, everybody knows that. You know what I'm saying? But let me just get back to my point, and then we can caveat into Egypt as soon as I get done with this review, family. Um, and I'd appreciate you for coming by. But the point is this: the priest would have done the most damage, because by them not the priests are doctors, lawyers, dentists, police. Uh, uh, they're everything. Okay, the priests are everything. All right. The only role I don't think the priests actively play, and they can judge, they can play the role of the judge, but that's the only role I know they don't actively go out and play, right on, is the role of judge. So having said that, this is a very special group of people who by all means are highly trained, all right, or supposed to be, and they're supposed to be highly qualified. These same individuals abuse their post, and they create dysfunction that would have never ever existed within a nation of people had that not been the case. Um, it's just like this character right here who came around talking about, Egypt was a black land, laugh out loud. I mean, I'm a black dude, or I'm an Afro man, okay? I'm an Afro man when it's all said and done. I know that the Egyptians were Afro people. I don't need somebody to come in here telling me that they were Afro people. You know what I'm talking about? That we all know that. These are, once again, what I put forth, I believe is common knowledge that everybody knows that these were so-called black people. I've never contended anything else other than when I didn't have the fullness of understanding that I do now, And not to say that I have a full understanding, I just have a much more full understanding in 2020 than I did have in 2015. Where are we at? Okay. You don't treat people funny. Wow. And the ordinance of treating someone, right, how you want to be treated, the idea, right, that you're supposed to treat a stranger like yourself. The Most High God put that ordinance out there, right on. It wasn't so that way you could be huggied up with these people. It was so that way you could show your children and say, hey, look, this is how you treat people, because when we were in Egypt, they treated us like dirt. Okay? It's not so that way it's anything else. It's not for nothing other than that, to verify and to vindicate that the way that we were treated one time before is not, it's not how you treat people. And it's also so that way they can be held to the same standard that you're trying to be held to, or that you seek to be held to. Prime example. Let's talk about Egypt real quick, right? Let's talk about how in the land of Egypt, there were some practices that were fairly normal, part of a part of the daily life of the Egyptian people, that's questionable, i.e., sleeping with animals, i.e., sleeping with their mothers and fathers, i.e., sleeping with their brothers and sisters, i.e., sleeping with their sons and daughters, their aunties and uncles, their nieces and nephews, right on, i.e., sleeping with animals, right? Right, sleeping with their children's children. These are things that they were doing on a regular. These are things that they practiced on a regular. And so sometimes I believe that people will disconnect that type of activity from Egypt, you know, and no disrespect, but it's that type of activity that caused Egypt to fall, right? The Romans uh and the Grecians, they claim are societies influenced by the Egyptians. I contend something totally different. I contend that because they are children of Adam as well, they don't need to be influenced by anybody, because they're all related. You follow what I'm saying? So they're going to do things. So they're going to naturally commerce with one another, and they're going to do things that are likened to one another because they're all related. It's a fact. Um, that's just the way it goes. So when a person tries to tell me, oh, the white man put that the Egyptians were sleeping with animals. Okay, well, you can't have it both ways. The white man acknowledged Egypt, dog. Not only did they acknowledge Egypt, but they acknowledged the Philistines. They acknowledged the Kushite Empire. They acknowledged a whole lot of different little things. They even acknowledged India in this book. India. So when people try to contend whatever, there needs to be a connection of understanding. Once again, in the book of the Leviticus, it's telling us that these people needed to be shown or needed to be told not to do this. I could contend the people were already doing stuff like that. Come on. They came out of a land where for 430 years they were around that type of activity. You're telling me none of the Israelites, none of the children of Israel engaged in that type of activity? That's nonsense. That's foolishness. Right. He's telling them right now, the land you're going into, the people are like that. The only problem is I can't get all the people up off the land, right? It's going to take a year. It's going to take, listen, the Most High God needed 1 year cycle to get rid of the people off the land. The children of Israel failed to be able to withhold for a whole year cycle. Think about that for a moment. To abstain from sins like sleeping with animals. They couldn't do that for a whole year. They couldn't wait a year for the Most High God to get rid of all the people from off the land, right? They couldn't, they just couldn't wait. They just had to done it. And so now we have this period where once again, I'm getting way far ahead, but I have to. But then you're gonna have this period where now when the judges are supposed to be there, the people are in the land of their inheritance. The judges come every so many years. We're talking about there are periods where the Israelites are oppressed for like we're talking like 100 years or better at a time. You know what I'm saying? Like they're just for it's crazy. And then you have what I call the totality of these events, which is getting to the end of the book of the Judges, where there's this civil war with the tribe of Benjamin. Now, before I go all the way in on the civil war thing, it is critical that I point out one thing about Benjamin first. Number one, he is the closest related brother of Joseph. Why this is important is because he's the baby, number one. And babies are always spoiled brats. Almost always. They're not always spoiled brats, but normally they are. He's the baby, but in Egypt, outside of Ephraim and Manasseh, he would have had it the easiest. Joseph would have set him up like that. Joseph would have set it up for him to be like that. Why that is so critical is because he totally goes against ordinance. Like there's a whole tribe of men. I need people to understand this. It's a whole tribe of grown men, okay, who have they strayed so far from the light that what happened was, hello, how you doing, GeoStreamers? But they strayed so far from the light, this whole tribe, that they began to believe that a man laying with a man as with a woman was normal everyday activity. Come on, it's backwards. That's ordinance that's punishable by death. Now, I found it awkwardly amazing that after this great civil war, even though Israel's totally conflicted, and they say there's a breach in the tribes of Israel, right? There's a breach, right? There's a hole. And why this is so important is because this breach, they fill it with Philistine women. They don't allow their daughters to marry into the tribe of Benjamin. And I'm sure there were women who married into the tribe later on. But there was a period where it's no, we don't do that around here. And why that's so important, why that's so critical is because now you have a tribe of people who mix with a group of people who I could contend their whole bloodline, the entire Hamitic, all the children of Ham, all the children of Ham, I could contend have in their genome the ability to commit what we call the abominable act of homosexuality. Already being a tribe that was predisposed to this sort of activity. Now they blood mix with the people who were genetically predisposed to this sort of activity. So you can never ever believe that this ailment, this illness, this wrongdoing was ever fixed. In fact, they put a big Band-Aid over it and it got worse. And it culminated itself with the name of a man named Shaul of the tribe of Benjamin, right on, the son of Kish, right? He was the least of the least. Yet Shaul stood a head above everyone else. So if the average head is about 8 to 10 inches, That means that Shaul was, let's assume the average brother back then is 5'8", 5'9", right? And Shaul is 8 inches taller than them. Shaul is 6'5", 6'6", maybe 6'7", right? So he's Kawhi Leonard, if you will, right? Just just deal with me. Maybe as short as a guy, and he's still much taller than me, as short as a guy like James Harden, who's like 6'5", right on? 6'4", 6'5", something like that. So you get what I'm saying, though, right? It's somebody who's around that height, not much taller than that, not much shorter than that. So anywhere between 6'4" and 6'7". So this is the height of Shaul, and he becomes the king. Now this is a guy who I could contend, even though there was never an instance that it jumped out like that, right? Um, I could still contend that that's an issue for him, right on? I could still contend that. But his biggest issue is his pride. And Shaul's pride brings the people to sin a great sin. Had Shaul never done this, he'd have never not been made he would have been the king for forever. And he's a younger tribesman. He's the youngest tribesman, actually. Okay. From the youngest tribe who did some booty activity. And think about that. They're the first tribe to take kingship in the entire tribe. Out of all the tribes, the tribe that had to get smashed on to nothing is the first one to take kingship. These are things that, like, people are like, what's that have to do with the Levitical review? I'm like, everything. Everything. Because the Levite priests are here while all these things are taking place. And it's up to the true men of God to do the right thing. You don't send a boy to do a man's job. Never. You never do that. Having said that, I get ready to end all of our talking on this note. We know that there's supposed to be a tax system within Israel. Something that I believe that is totally backwards in today's society, where we give the elders the lion's share and the younger get the lesser share. That's bull. The older people are supposed to get lesser, and the prime age people are supposed to get the most, and the youngest are supposed to get the least. That's how it's supposed to go. That's how it's supposed to go. The elders are not supposed to get more than somebody who's technically this person can do more than you. They have more value than you. I know folks hate to hear. I'm 29. I'll be 30 next year. I'm still young gunner. Okay, I'll be old in 20 years. Oldish, getting there. You know, talking about, but for sure past my heyday. Man, that's 20 years from now. Right now, I'm more valuable than any 70-year-old you're going to go find. Any 65-year-old you're going to go find. I'm more valuable than them. Because I can just, my ability to maintain a level of physicality for a duration of time is far greater than theirs. And maybe at one point in time they could have done much more than me, but at this point in their life, they can't. And I use my body. I try to do things physically so that way I can maintain myself the best that I can. But that's one of those things. A young lady is far more valuable than an old lady. This old lady ain't having babies no more. She's done. She's done. Her baby making days are over. No disrespect. That's what it is. Can we all just really say it and say what's up? That's no disrespect. That's what it is, though. Okay? And And I'm so tired of people trying to act like that's not what it is. That is what it is. If you're a certain age right now, if you're under the age of 60, your value is higher than that of any senior person. It's just that's what it is. There's going to be exceptions here and there, of course, but there's going to be more times than not what I'm saying is true. Do you trust a 60-year-old woman to have a child over a 30-year-old woman? Really? That's what I'm saying. It's like at some point you have to realize it's worth giving you more because you're going to last longer, foreseeably. And your ability to be able to give back what you've been given is much better and it's much easier. Do people not realize when you have a valuation, right? How much you're worth to the sanctuary, right? Understand you got to give that back. It's a taxation system. That's what you're worth. That's what we need from you. At this age, you should be able to produce this much. Right. The entire idea is that the Most High God was going to have a nation of people of where everybody was rich. I know that's hard to believe. Everybody was supposed to be rich. Everybody was supposed to be rich, y'all. So damn. Here we go with this guy. Don't worry, pimp. I got to get you out of here. It's all right. These guys, the devil. Devil's always sad, y'all, because I'm telling the truth. I seem to be the only one where YouTube has taken the time to send their professional trolls to try to come and throw me off track. Back to what I was saying. Your valuation, you're responsible for that. And the Most High God intended to have rich nations, people who totally had it going on. You know, totally had it going on. What's up, family? You know, yeah, man, this guy talking about eating bussy meat. He's doing way too much. He's doing way too much. These guys, man, they're the devil, bro. Oh, why me? You know what I'm saying? Why not the other people? Why not? Bro, I watch people's live streams all the time. This never happens to them. Never. Sometimes you have a disgruntled black person who comes around, but this right here, it's just too much. Anyway, family, I'm about to roll out, right? But I just have to roll out on the note of we're supposed to have things. We're not supposed to be broke. You know, even in the land where we're in our captivity, in order for you to be a spoil and a prey, you have to be worth something. Think about that for a second. What worthless prey is this? Like who is worthless that's considered a spoil or a prey? A spoil is something that's worth something. Right on. The spoils of war. Right on. Oh. Once again, I wouldn't know, bro. I wouldn't know, family. These guys, you know. Yeah, he was trying to be way too funny. He was trying to do way too much. You know. He was talking some man with another man that's with a woman abomination nonsense. You know, he was talking, he wanted to get stoned nonsense. You know, he don't know. I'll oblige him. I'll bust his head wide open with a fucking rock. Excuse my language. See, he made me get out of character, but it's okay. All the way wide open to the white meat. I will bust his head wide open and stone him right to death. They don't understand. I believe what's written here. I believe in it. I believe if they still stone people, people wouldn't do the stuff that they're doing. Could you imagine that if the death penalty was death by stones? Nobody's committing a crime, bro. Only the brazen. Only the brazen. And you would find out that only the brazen are really white people. And a couple nigs. Nigs would almost never get locked up if there was even the possibility that you could get stoned. Nigs wouldn't do nothing. But it's not a possibility, so ain't got to worry about that. Right. See what I'm saying, though? But if that was the case, bro, just think about that for a second, fam. If I could get my whole temporal lobe taken off with a big guavamela-sized rock, guaranteed nobody's going to do whatever I did. It's a fact. They're not going to do what I did. It's a fact. But because once again, in order to get killed in this country, you normally have to kill somebody else. Listen, sleeping with your mother or father is worthy of killing you for. Right on? Sleeping with the animal is worthy of killing you for. Word? If you break into somebody's home and they can't identify you and they kill you, that's not blood on their hands. Once again, breaking into somebody's home, that's a reason to kill you, dog. Like, word. See, and people think that you need to actually kill somebody to be killed. That's bullshit. That's once again, it's one of the reasons why everything here is so messed up is because they didn't, what they wanted to do when the most informed white people read the Bible and understood that there's a chance that these black people we have here are actually the Israelites. Boom. Once they realized that, some of them said, okay, well, let's read it and let's try to understand what levels of oppression we're going to be able to put on them. And when they see, like, man, we can oppress them to the max. Nobody's going to come and save them. There will be nobody is going to redeem us. Right on? Nobody. See what I'm saying? Nobody's going to purchase us. Nobody's going to do none of that. See what I'm saying? So because we can't be redeemed, right? We can't be saved. That means that what? That you're going to be a spoil and a prey to everyone. I find it funny that people think, well, don't worry, we're just one biblical book replaced from all the information that's about to be laid out and imparted to the people in the book of the Deuteronomy. I just think that it's unfortunate that we've gotten to this point. And I know that it's only so many black people who really understand what's going on. Before we leave, this is it. Gentiles, which would have been, I think, question number one for Moses. I think Moses would have encountered that question more than anything. He would have had the hardest time trying to show people, because there would have been people who would have been Gentiles, who would have been connected or affiliated or associated with known living tribes, right on, i.e. the Cushites, i.e. the Latusians, i.e. and this is obviously well after Moses, but you get what I'm saying, though. It's just trying to point out to you that there's groups of people that are named people, that are known people on the earth, right on. Just because this dude said just because this guy claims he's from Egypt, just because this dude said he's Egyptian, does not actually mean he's Egyptian. That dude has to be a true son of Mizraim. That guy has to be a true child of Mizraim. Right. You can't be a child. You can't be Egyptian and your roots don't go back to Mizraim, that don't go back to Cam, that don't go back to Noah. Right on? Word? You feel me? You just can't have that conversation. You know. Maybe people will get it one day. You know. Maybe. But Let me just try to just name something real quick. Adam, Seth, Enos, Malalel, Jared, Methuselah, Lamech, Noah. I'm pretty sure that's the proper order. I'm pretty sure that's the order up until Noah. Right on. Word. You would have to, right? Their bloodline after Noah would have to go all the way back. You see what I'm saying? Like that's right. If they don't have root to Adam, they're Gentiles. Can y'all feel me? Hey, look, y'all, it's been an honor and a pleasure. Whew. Whew. It's been an honor and a pleasure. And we'll be reading the very first, I don't know, we'll probably get the first 5 to 7 chapters of the book of the Numbers done. Give me 2 or 3 days maximum. So by Friday, be looking forward to a really good Friday, but Thursday the earliest, right? So we can really put it down in these chapters, read, research, relate it the best we can, and then just continue to pray for the end, to pray that if we don't get salvation, that the righteous get salvation. I can't stress it to my brothers and my sisters enough. If you help somebody else make it to the promised, I don't see how the Most High God would not look at that and show some sort of mercy, even if he has to punish us. Even if he has to punish me in the end, I can't help but to think that if I do the right thing, my punishment will be less than someone who chose to just do the wrong thing all the time. And to say that I'm going to be punished is not me saying I think or I know that I'm going to be punished, but it's just to have the open mind that I might not make it. As bad, as much as I desire, as good as I desire to want to go to heaven, might not make it to the promised land, might not make it to tomorrow. But if I can help somebody get to the place, right, that we all want to be in, then I've done my job. Really, really, I've done a yeoman's work if I help just one person get there. And that's what this is about. I know people really say that if I just help one person, but I mean, think about that. How many people are going to be able to say, I helped somebody get to heaven? You know what I mean? Like that's an accomplishment in and of itself. That if I just, you know what I mean? Like that's an accomplishment just to help somebody get there. So don't minimize how important you are to the scope of things. And I'm just getting to that point in my life where I don't minimize every little thing that I do as if because I did it, it's not that important, or because I did it, it's a simple thing. I'm just starting to really just appreciate that, Demetrius, because you did it, it should be looked at just as great as anything else that anybody else has ever done in the same category. I might be the only person to read the first 5 books to you guys in this lifetime and in the next couple lifetimes. But as long as YouTube is up and as long as this account is up, they'll be able to go back one day and literally just listen to the Bible be read to them and listen to a person try to break down what it is that's being conveyed through the message. It sounds easy. It's much easier said than done. But I am happy to take on that task. I am excited to do so. I speak nothing but an honest blessing unto you. I ask that the Most High God rebuke all of us now while we are still living in the flesh, that we may come to our senses and do the right thing, whatever that is. I said this all these years ago on my very first spiritual gumbo ever. I said something like, you can think local. You can think global, but you have to act local. Right on? That's the straight up truth. Having said that, y'all, I salute you. Good night and much love.